Legends of Origin, Book 1, Sanctuary for the Devil. Chapter 1. 33-year-old Liam McCaskill hurried across the desert sand, imposing mountain peaks at his back, their size dwindling as he progressed. He did his best to ignore the howling wind ripping at his clothes and whipping his dark hair into his face, often stinging his eyes and blinding him. He ignored the relentless rain and hailstones, pelting his face and adding to the bruises and gashes he knew must cover him from head to toe. He also paid no heed to the throbbing in his wounded leg, knowing that to acknowledge its existence would empower it to control him. How pathetic it would be to escape Saw's wrath only to be ended by a minor wound such as the one his captors had given him during his escape. It was a flesh wound, really, nothing more. Just the tip of a guard's sword had slashed Liam's left thigh, and it hadn't hindered his escape in the least. In fact, the flash of pain he'd felt as the wound had been inflicted had made new adrenaline course through him, enabling him to overpower 3 guards, all at least twice his size and armed with Earth technology, too. Making his way over the mountain range bordering the enemy palace was what had made the wound a problem. Genshay Mountains were usually easy to traverse, he'd been told, if you had a horse to carry you along the winding pathways for the 3 days it took to reach the other side. Liam had been forced to climb its towering peaks, causing his injured leg to go into spasms so many times he'd lost count, albeit saving him 2 days' journey. The soldiers would have pursued on horseback along the mountain's main path, splitting up to explore the narrower, lesser-used paths. He doubted they would have expected him to attempt the climb, or survive it. A soft chuckle escaped Liam, and he choked it back, increasing his pace and lowering his head further to protect his face from the hail, although his neck ached from being in that position for almost 24 hours. He had not come this far to give himself away with insane, foolish laughter. Liam had nothing to laugh about, and he could be wrong. His enemies could, right at that moment, be climbing the mountains towards him. His leg throbbed more the closer he got to his destination. The end of the desert came into sight. Waves thundered just over the sand dunes ahead. He was almost there, almost safe. Just over the dunes, a short way down the beach, was the sanctuary he sought. The sky darkened rapidly now as night came, and Liam found a new surge of energy as lightning fragmented the sky and a sharp thunderclap vibrated the ground. Everything forgotten but the need to reach the dunes, he drew his royal blue coat tighter around him, crossed his arms to keep it in place, and then increased his pace to a jog, his bones protesting every movement. He had a bad feeling. The sooner he reached safety, the sooner it would go away, he hoped. Liam stood atop the dune, panting and staring down at the tableau before him in dismay. The beach below, which should have been soft, white sand, was covered in what looked like broken glass. Dark coldness crept into his heart, spreading its tendrils to chill him further. He looked down at his bare feet, already bleeding from the climb, and walked through the desert's sand. This was bad. Gathering his senses, Liam made his way down the dune, slipping and sliding a few times. He bent to examine the shimmering sand and frowned. It was glass. Shattered glass, covering his only route to safety. Safety about a kilometer down the beach, where Genshay Mountains wrapped around to meet the ocean. The dunes on either side were too steep for him to climb in his current condition, making this glittering carpet his only route. Liam cursed under his breath. How could this be? Despair grasped his mind as he straightened to gaze around in panic-induced madness. The shattered pieces were all clear glass and all clean-looking, with no indication of where they had come from. Liam's frown deepened as he pondered his predicament. If he turned back now, he was a guaranteed dead man. He would never make it over the peaks a second time, and would walk straight into Saw's men if he turned back to go along the path. Those being his only two options, Liam sucked in a deep breath and, the decision not quite taken form yet, dashed onto the glass fragments in the direction of Tridor Monastery, where he could claim sanctuary under the land's laws of God. Liam barely noticed as sand dunes melted into scattered rocks, then solid rock face. His injured leg threatened to cave in, but he sprinted forward, focused on speed and his destination. Being able to focus so single-mindedly was one of the many benefits he'd gained from daily meditation for the last 3 years, a requirement at the dojo where he had trained in Kai Aikido and Ninjutsu, among other martial arts. He'd hated it at first, but it had been a condition of employment at the private investigation company he had worked for up until recently, up until he'd met Joshua. The hail stopped abruptly and, along with it, the hail and wind, almost as if nature held its breath to see if he'd make it. And his surprise slowed him for a moment, but he rectified that quickly. His coat came loose as he came around the beach's curve, where a small natural harbor blocked the way forward. The wind came back with a vengeance and whipped his coat up into his face, causing him to stumble. Just then, his leg gave in and he collapsed on the sand, his lungs on fire and his heart beating wildly. He couldn't feel his feet, which he figured was probably for the best. Liam pulled himself onto his hands and knees. He glanced at the harbor's enormous waves in front of him. Lightning struck in the distance. On the harbor's far shore, something glistened as it snaked inland. A river? He blinked, and it was gone. He looked to his right, the narrow stretch of sand that extended towards his right, leading back toward the mountains, what would be considered part of the holy land the monastery stood on, was free of glass. Odd. A frown creased his brow again. When he tried to stand, Liam realized that his feet would take no more punishment. He caught a glimpse of one as he collapsed again. He couldn't see his flesh for blood. He decided not to look at them again. With a shuddering breath, Liam began to crawl towards the monastery. Walking along the stretch of sand bordering the harbor and up the short, gradual inclining pathway that led up the mountains towards the monastery would have taken a mere few minutes. Crawling along it, however, and in the middle of a strange mixed-weather storm, was another story. Liam grimaced as he dragged his feet along the sand. He was injuring himself further, but he didn't care. The only thing he cared about was reaching the monastery. Everything would be okay then. The healers would heal him with their magic when he got there. Every time he moved forward, he was convinced he could go no further. Eventually, his knees gave in on him too, and he heaved himself onwards with his elbows, determined to reach safety. Liam finally reached the bottom of the mountain pathway. Without pause, he dragged himself along it. If he stopped, however briefly, he wouldn't find the strength to continue. He knew this without a doubt. After what felt like days of torture, worse even than that he had endured at Saw's hands, the monastery came into view, partly hidden by hanging tree branches and bushes. Built mostly into the mountain, the stone-walled monastery rose 3 stories, with a round 2-story tower, the top floor windowless, extending from the roof in the center. Tears of relief streamed down Liam's face to mingle with rainwater as he dragged himself towards the monastery at a faster pace, all pain forgotten. If he could just reach the front steps, he would be able to claim sanctuary. He collapsed just a few paces from the steps, his aching arms unable to take any more punishment. Just as the bitterness of failure was about to consume him, a voice called out nearby, "Look! Over there!" Without warning, the wind picked up, tearing at Liam's clothes as if trying to claim him for itself. Seconds later, gentle hands turned him onto his back, and he looked into the concerned blue eyes of a blond monk. "He's hurt! Call the healer!" A second voice shouted something back that Liam couldn't hear above the howling wind. He reached up, grabbed the monk's collar, and rasped, "Sanctuary! I claim sanctuary!" Then he fell back and passed out. The blond monk, Arthian, looked down at the stranger, perplexed. From whom did he claim sanctuary? He was the second stranger in the last week to claim sanctuary here, and the first had fallen into a coma before they could question him. Before that, the last time anyone had claimed sanctuary at Tridor Monastery had been at least 13 years ago, at which time it had done the unfortunate soul no good, as the lord of the land at the time had been a godless man named Cayenne, who had no respect for the law and had invaded the premises to claim his prize. Since sanctuary had meant nothing under Cayenne's rule, nobody had attempted to claim it after that, and after the war that had seen the fall of Cayenne and the rise of Saw, nobody had needed sanctuary. Saw ruled fairly, and none had ever opposed his rule. So from what, then, did this stranger claim sanctuary? Arthian shivered violently and glanced back down the pathway to his left, then towards the harbor below. Both were empty. He stared down at the man again. His expensive-looking coat was torn so badly that it was now worth no more than rags. His right trouser leg was blood-stained. Wet sand crusted his eyes. His face was covered in red, rapidly swelling lumps, presumably gifts from the hailstones earlier. And his feet were caked in so much blood and sand that it was difficult to see the full extent of his injuries. Whatever he claimed sanctuary from, it was understandable. Serthon, Tridor's healer, arrived with 2 monks and placed the stranger on a stretcher to carry him inside. Arthian followed, sensing an omen in the second stranger's arrival, as he had with the first. An omen more powerful than any he'd been sent in all of his 35 years. Whether it was good or bad was yet to be seen. The pounding in Liam's head woke him. The room was dark. Angry clouds presumably still hid the moon and stars. A light sea breeze wafted in from the window to the left of his bed, easing his headache somewhat as he savored slow, deep breaths of it. When he tried to turn his head, his neck went into spasm, and an involuntary cry of pain escaped him. Hurried footsteps approached, and a thin, blond, blue-eyed monk appeared in the doorway and rushed to his bedside. It was the same monk who had found him, earlier that same night, Liam presumed. "Are you okay, friend?" Liam tried to answer, but an itch pricked his throat and a fit of coughs racked him, sending his neck muscles into further spasm and making his eyes water. The monk reached for a jug of water on the small block of wood that served as a bedside table, poured some into a wooden mug, and held it to Liam's lips. Liam took 2 sips and choked, then endured another coughing fit before falling back onto the soft pillow in exhaustion. His ribs ached as much as his leg, and pain lanced his chest every time he breathed, and he wondered if he'd broken a few ribs. The monk hovered over him now. It irritated Liam. Liam frowned, resisting the urge to order the man to leave. It wasn't his fault that everything irritated Liam lately. Instead, he swallowed, cleared his throat, and asked, "So, how are my feet?" The monk hesitated and glanced at Liam's feet, which Liam now noticed were bandaged. "Serthon, our healer, says we'll only know in a few days if they'll heal right. He says no bones were broken, so it bodes well, but there were strange, sharp crystals embedded in the flesh that caused a lot of damage. So we'll just have to wait and see." The monk paused. possibly because he caught a glint in Liam's eyes that said he knew what those sharp crystals were. My name's Arthian, by the way. May I take this opportunity to welcome you to Tridor Monastery, where I have sanctuary, right? Gasped Liam. Arthian appeared taken back. Well, yes. You claimed it, and no one is denied it. Ever? No matter what they've done or who they've wronged? Liam rasped. The monk stared at him with puzzled, curious eyes. No one is denied sanctuary. Ever. God does not turn away from anyone who comes to him for salvation, friend. Not ever. It's not in his nature to turn his back on his people. A frown briefly crossed Liam's face, and then he relaxed, smiled weakly, and passed out again. 2 days later, in the late afternoon, Arthian stood partially behind a pillar just inside the monastery's main recreation room, watching the stranger who sat on the room's second-floor balcony, staring out over the natural harbor, the waters of which were now calm and clear again after 2 days raging during the worst lightning storm the land had ever witnessed. The stranger, who he'd learnt was called Liam, an odd name and one Arthian had never heard before, had, thus far, refused to reveal from whom he ran or anything about himself. He was convinced that, if they knew who was after him, they'd deny him sanctuary. Nothing could persuade him otherwise. Every time anyone asked, he got moody and contemplative, and a faraway look crept into his eyes, filling them with too many emotions for Arthian to read. There was something about the newcomer that Arthian couldn't put his finger on. It bothered him, and because of that, he knew it was important. Nothing much ever bothered him anymore, so, when it did, he took note. The bothered feeling was a message from God, and those should never be ignored or taken lightly. Uncannily, Liam turned and met his gaze, almost as if he had sensed Arthian watching. Arthian shivered, and then moved towards where Liam sat and joined him on the rock floor. How do you feel today, friend? Liam shrugged and then winced. Your neck is still paining you, I see. Don't worry, it's only bruising. The muscles will recover, maybe stronger than before. It'll just take some time. That's all. Yeah, I know, Liam scowled. I'm just not sure I have time. Don't you have any medicine that will speed my recovery? Or at least dull the pain? This tea Sirthan brings me hardly does anything at all. Why doesn't he use his magic? One should only call on God for a miracle when one is direly needed. You will be perfectly okay without one. As for the tea, that is because your pain is too intense. The tea is only meant for headaches, stomach aches, and the likes, not for major injuries. Liam's scowl deepened. Well, why doesn't he bring me something stronger then? Arthian was taken aback by Liam's attitude. Surely he knew there were hardly any Hyslea plants left in the land, so strong pain remedies were hard to come by. When he hesitatingly told Liam this, he laughed. Arthian was certain this was the laugh of a crazy person. Liam's laughter stopped abruptly and he turned to Arthian. They'll be here soon, you know. Today. Around sunset, probably. Those from whom you claimed sanctuary? Arthian asked. Yes. Liam seemed to retreat into another world for a while, then turned to Arthian and asked, How long can I legally claim sanctuary here? Arthian blinked. You must be from a land far, far away. Liam guffawed. Arthian was confused. What was funny about what he'd just said? Liam must have seen his confusion because he said, A land far, far away. Get it? Arthian frowned. No, I don't. This made Liam laugh even harder. Ugh, of course you don't get it. Yes, I'm from a land far, far away. He snorted. Never, never land. He grinned at Arthian. How far away is it? Liam broke into another fit of mad laughter. Far, far away. He squealed, half joking and half giggling as he held his sides. Arthian frowned again. You have a strange sense of humor where you come from, friend. To answer your question, you have sanctuary for as long as you need it. Liam stopped laughing. Really? What if that means forever? Then Tridor is your home. Really? Arthian was incredulous. Why did Liam keep asking really? Did he think a monk would lie to him? Monks don't lie, he stated solemnly. Liam raised an eyebrow. That's good to know. He worried at the bandages covering his feet, apparently trying to find a piece thin enough for him to scratch the itching flesh through. So, what's the fee I pay for sanctuary? Arthian chuckled. Friend, I don't know what type of land you come from, but in this land, sanctuary is free. No man has the right to charge another for God given sanctuary. We are not the ones who provide the sanctuary. We are merely the ones placed in charge of it. Liam smiled. This just keeps getting better. Tell me, do you think God sees right and wrong in terms of black and white? Or are there shades of gray? The question caught Arthian off guard, and he considered it, and then replied carefully. I think each situation should be considered as it arises, and the choices that serve God and others, the choices that hurt no one, or the least number of people, should be made. I think that's all we can do, really, without a handbook detailing every possible situation one might be faced with. Liam nodded slightly, as if satisfied with the answer. What about if you murdered someone just because you could? Arthian flinched. Is that what you've done? Tried to. Arthian studied the floor. Just because you could? Yes. Without a hint of mirth, Arthian countered. Well, clearly you couldn't, since you didn't succeed. Liam smiled. Well, I thought I could. No other reason, just opportunity. Of course there was another reason, Liam scoffed. I'm not a psychopath, you know. He intends to do something really bad, and if I had killed him, he wouldn't be alive to do it anymore. He turned to Arthian. Will God forgive me the deaths this man will cause? Will he forgive me for the suffering this man will cause? Will he forgive me for my failure? Or is he the one who made me fail because murder is wrong, no matter what the reasons? Arthian responded, That's not your sin to be forgiven. What matters is that you tried to do what you thought was right, that you did your best. More than your best is not expected, and if murder is wrong no matter what, you have nothing to worry about either, because you haven't committed murder. What if it's the fact that I tried that I need forgiveness for? Arthian blinked. After a few moments of silence, he said, I don't know. If your actions were for no other reason than to save lives, perhaps there is nothing to be forgiven in that regard either. Only God can tell you that, friend. Liam made a rude noise. What if I had other sins? Sins that are mine alone? Sins that I'd hoped the murder of this killer would absolve? God doesn't expect you to do more than your best. To expect the impossible is ridiculous. Liam raised an eyebrow. This whole universe is ridiculous. What I've seen of it so far, anyway. Voices came from below, and Liam went rigid. Arthian recognized the voices of his fellow monks and said, Varek and Shayla. You met them at supper last night. Liam gave a half nod, then asked, If the army of your land decides to help this man, would the soldiers raid the monastery to get to me? Arthian, still trying to determine what it was about the newcomer he wasn't seeing, feeling it almost within his grasp, stammered, That they wouldn't do that? Why would they interfere with God's laws? Everyone knows God's laws come above men's laws. Liam remained silent, as if considering the reply, and not entirely convinced. He went rigid again as hoofbeats were heard nearby, quickly drawing closer. A few minutes later, 11 riders came into view, 10 clad in Saw's green and dark gray uniforms, and the lead rider in dark red and black? Saw. Arthian frowned, truly alarmed for the first time. Tell me, please, who exactly did you attempt to kill? The one in front. Arthian gasped. But Saw is a good, fair, and God-fearing ruler. Even now, when the land suffers at the hands of the weather, anyone can go to Saw for help. He never turns anyone away. What could he possibly be planning that God would want stopped? Liam appeared to shrink. He whispered, barely audible. He bargains with. He seemed to struggle to find the right word. Then his voice, stronger, said, He bargains with the devil. Arthian's heart clenched at the words. It couldn't be. Surely you are wrong. I'm not. I saw it with my own eyes. Arthian gaped. Surely he can't know. Oh, he knows, all right. How do you know that? He cannot not know. We seek the dark-eyed stranger. Bring him to us, now. Barak's voice came from below. We cannot do that. He has claimed sanctuary. He defends me without even knowing what my crime was, Liam thought. Now that wouldn't happen on Earth. Liam shrank back against the balcony wall, afraid to be seen. He noticed the strange look Arthian gave him, as if he didn't understand what he was afraid of. Saw's cold voice replied, He is a traitor who tried to murder your ruler. Will you allow an enemy of the land to hide inside your walls? Varek's voice faltered. We refuse no one's sanctuary. It is the law. Saw snapped. Don't speak to me of the law, monk. I am on God's side. What makes this man an enemy of God, too? Now bring him to me, or would you have God punish you for harboring his enemies? Jergor, Drider's abbot, arrived on the scene and took over from the struggling Varek. My lord, with all due respect, God is a forgiving God. If this man managed to find his way here, it's probably God giving him the opportunity to seek forgiveness. Surely, considering his injuries, he would otherwise not have made it this far. Saw began. Are you There was even an obstacle of strange crystal fragments that cut like knives, which covered almost the whole beach. Abbot Jerker interrupted. Yet he somehow made it past. Impossible, unless God helped him, wouldn't you say? Liam imagined the abbot cocking an eyebrow at Saw, and thought the conversation must be angering the ruler in a big way. His lips twitched in a vague smile. What are you talking about, Abbot? There are no obstacles in our way now. Liam glanced at Arthian, an obvious silent question about the glass shards. But Arthian shrugged. The last time he looked, the shards had blanketed the beach. They were there when we looked 2 days ago. Perhaps the devil's magic faded once they were no longer needed to hinder. Saw tried to sway the head monk a bit more, but soon gave up and left in a scowling huff. Liam's bad feeling intensified as he watched the riders dwindle into the distance. This was not over yet.